We just take a moment to close our outer eyes. Am I on? Is my mic on this one?
I don't know.
Close our outer eyes. So we move our awareness into the center of our being, into that quiet, still place, that place of peace, that place where we are truly connected, one-on-one to the divine. As we rest in this awareness of pure being, we remember that we are one with the divine spirit, the infinite divine spirit that connects all life across the cosmos. That spirit that created us, that sustains us, and that returns us to wholeness in every cell of our being. We participate in the life right here on planet Earth. We are connected with every sentient being, with every plant and tree and rock. We are all one. In this connection, this deep and abiding connection, we are nourished by the God within. We tap into divine ideas to help us live our lives better. As part of that creative force, we are responsible and responsive for making this world a better place, just because each one of us is here. Our mission is to spread divine love everywhere, to look into the faces around us and recognize the spark of divinity burning within each and every soul, calling us higher into a greater awareness of the God of our understanding, illuminating us, allowing the light of the living God to shine through us as we are uplifted. And so we take just a few moments to move into the silence as we feel our connection with the divine. Sweet Spirit, Mother, Father, God, you who created us to be good, we come in gratitude as we remember that we are all one. And in this great oneness, we move out into the world and create a world that's sustainable for all. A world where we celebrate our differences, where we celebrate our connections, where we allow each and every person to rise up into their own perfection. And so, God, we say thank you. We are truly grateful, and it is so. Amen. Amen. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Reverend Fleming, And this morning my talk is entitled, Finding Yourself in Transition Again, or Transition Comes Before Transformation. So this morning, let's just talk a little bit about what happens when things in our lives change. Has anybody experienced change in your life lately? Has anybody, probably the better question, has anybody not experienced change in your life lately, right? Stuff happens. And sometimes stuff happens faster and harder than we can tap dance. True? Right. Well, you know, change is inevitable. If there's anything that we can count on, it's change, whether we like it or not. And actually, that's a good thing, because if we don't like it and it changes, it's good. So change is inevitable, and we know for certain that things will change. Everyone in this room has sat through, in their lifetime, incredible changes. Most of us can remember a time when we didn't have televisions in our house. I can remember my dad went out on his motorcycle one day with his friend, and he came back on the back of his friend's motorcycle, and my mother's like, "Oh my God, what happened to your motorcycle?" He said, "Just make sure you're home on Monday." She said, "I have 3 children. Where am I going to go?" And on Monday, they delivered our first television. My father traded his motorcycle for a brand new television.
Black and white?
Of course. Of course, it was. And it had a big cabinet doors on the front of it. It was a really nice piece of furniture. How about computers? I mean, on our little cell phones, it was my birthday on Friday, and my husband bought me a new cell phone. Got a new cell phone. It has that thing on it that's Siri, that you can talk into it, and it talks. Oh, you tell it what your name is, and it talks back, and like, if you want to find out something, it'll find out for you. I mean, how amazing is that? That cell phone has more computing power than it took to send the first man who walked on the moon. Isn't that amazing? I mean, I have a laptop, my husband has a laptop, I have an iPad, you know, we have all this amazing computing power that we didn't have just a few years ago. And what about all the surgery now that's done with robots? I had some abdominal surgery that 5 or 10 years ago would have left me with a 12-inch incision and 6 weeks of recovery, and I had the surgery on Friday with a laparoscope, and I was back in school on Wednesday. And doctors can do surgery in different parts of the world with little joysticks. We live in an amazing time of change. Change, you can, on my little cell phone, I can put my address in there, and it plots where my house is, and I can push a button and it shows a satellite picture of where I live. Everything is changing. Sometimes changes are really good, like say you graduate from something, or maybe you bring in a new baby into the world. You know, those are happy changes, although bringing a baby into the world is happy and no sleep, right? Right. My middle son is getting married next year, and he and his fiance are talking about starting a family, and I'm getting really excited to be a grandma again, because I don't have to stay up all night with the baby, right? So change is natural. You know, we're getting close now to the spring season. I noticed there's some flowering trees that we don't have down in the valley. You have fir trees here, don't you? Hopefully we won't get any more frost, since they're starting to bloom now. But the change of the seasons is a natural progression of going from the spring, when the flowers come on the trees and the grass starts to grow, and then in the summer the fruit sets on the trees, or the nuts or whatever, and in the fall we harvest them, and in the winter they go dormant again. That kind of change is as normal and natural as the world. In John chapter 12, verse 24, Jesus says, "Unless a grain of wheat falls onto the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears fruit." Everything goes through a process of change, doesn't it? Our bodies age, you know, we mature. That's all part of the natural part of change. And some changes can be really difficult. You know, many of us have gone to the doctor and gotten that diagnosis, and then we really have to see where we go with what we have to deal with. You know, I think it shows our true faith when we've been given that diagnosis and we have to deal with it. Some people that we know in our lives have made their transition and gone on to something else, and it can be really hard to be without that person, you know? When our loved ones move on, it's really difficult. Those kind of changes can be really tough. We've all experienced that one way or the other. I tell people, you know, both of my husband's parents are gone, both of my parents are gone, and I feel like an orphan, you know? You miss them, you always miss them. And if we don't ever try new things, what happens? We get stuck in a rut, don't we? I was driving up here and I counted 30 restaurants. Now this is not a very big town. 30 restaurants. How many of you go to the same 2 or 3 restaurants all the time? We do, don't we? We absolutely do. Now I can understand that maybe you don't like the food in one restaurant, but I bet there are some of you that go to the same restaurant so often that the waiters and waitresses know you, especially in a small town like this, right? Right? Well, a rut is a grave with the ends kicked out. A rut is a grave with the ends kicked out. Do you want to be in a rut all the time, or do you want to try something new? I'm challenging you. The next couple of weeks when you go out to eat someplace you've never eaten before, okay? Can you take that challenge? Look at this. I'm going to have to do it myself. You know, when something changes, it takes us into new territory. Territory where we may not have a map. We may not know where we are or how to get where we want to go. And that happens to us all the time when things change. But what's important is not what happens to us, but the meaning that we give to it. We're meaning makers. As people, we're meaning makers. And something can happen to me, and I might make it a negative meaning, and the same thing could happen to you, and you might take a positive meaning. We are meaning makers. Viktor Frankl says that humans have a deep, fundamental drive to seek meaning. Meaning is relative. Well, endings always come before beginnings. Something has to end before you can have a new beginning. I have a title that I cut out of the newspaper that says New Beginnings. And I found that in the paper when we were starting to talk about moving to Arizona from Florida. And it's still on my bulletin board. And I'm thinking I need something new other than new beginnings. I think I need to have more focus than just new beginnings. I'm going to take that down and come up with something different. I haven't quite figured out what it is yet. But, you know, sometimes we're happy when something ends. You know, if we've been in a difficult marriage, or if we finally graduate from school after we've been there a long time, you know, that can be something we really want. But sometimes when something ends, it hurts us. We have anger or fear or pain, and it gets to us at the core of our being. And we get lost. We don't know how to handle all of those emotions. And the only way we can move forward is to find some way to deal with that pain. Find some way to experience that sadness and grief and anger and frustration and hurt and move out. Don't stuff those feelings. You have to feel those feelings and then release until you can move forward. You know, and when there's an ending, it may seem like you're stuck for a long time, but I promise you that things happen in God's time. You know, if you're trying to sell a house like we were in Florida and trying to buy a house here in Arizona, sometimes it seems like it takes a long time, but once we finally sold our house in Florida, we found the house we wanted in Arizona, and things happened really quickly. It's like, you all know about butterflies, caterpillars and butterflies, right? You know, the caterpillar eats all the leaves and then gets big and fat and spins a little cocoon. And in the cocoon, the caterpillar turns to mush. That's what it's like when you've had an ending. You turn to mush, you don't know what to do. But we all know that the caterpillar knows exactly what to do. After a while, all the cells inside the cocoon rearrange themselves, and pretty soon the cocoon splits open, and out comes a beautiful butterfly. And we know if we try to help that butterfly get out of the cocoon, we'll damage the butterfly. It has to do it on its own. This time at an ending is a time of germination. It's pregnant with possibilities for that new beginning. T.S. Eliot says that what we call the beginning is often the end. And to make an end is to make a new beginning. But the end is where we start. When something has ended, that's where we start before we can make a new beginning. And of course, it's hard to see where we can go from the ending. The feeling that pain. Sometimes I know when I have something end and I'm feeling the pain and the grief and the loss, I get to that point of inertia. You know, just can't move forward. I can't go back because it ended. And I just want to crawl in my bed and pull up the covers and say, no, leave me alone. I get stuck. I can't make myself move forward. And that's when I know I really have to deal with all those feelings that are just stirring around in me, because if I don't, I'll never be able to let it go and move forward. Sometimes when we felt betrayed, if we lost a marriage or someone has betrayed us, we can even lose our self-esteem. We feel worthless. We feel like we can't do anything. Then we find ourselves in the wilderness, in the void, without a map, not knowing where to go, not knowing what to do, not knowing what's next. It's unfamiliar. It's frightening. We try to find a map. We talk to our friends sometimes, we talk to a counselor sometimes, try to work through it. But in that void, in that wilderness, the period between the end and before the beginning is a place for healing everything. Maybe even something you haven't healed that's not even related to this, because it will come up. In that place is a place for growth. It's a place for letting go, releasing anything that no longer serves you, so you can move into your higher good. Alan Cohn says, the only obstacles to healing are our own thoughts that run contrary to it, our judgment about who deserves it and how and when. Don't we sometimes hold other people in judgmental ways? Sometimes we do it to ourselves. No external condition whatsoever is required for healing. Nothing external. The only conditions, internal. Yeah, I know. What makes or breaks healing is our belief, our desire, our willingness, our openness, and our readiness. One thing is for sure, the moment you are ready and willing, the healing will come. You have to do that deep inner work first. You know, get the Roto-Rooter in there, look at all those feelings, ask, why is this happening to me again? You know, sometimes it happens over and over again, and sometimes it happens and then, oh, we recognize it. Oh yeah, this is the same thing. I know what I'm doing now. In the void, in the wilderness, that's our opportunity for the greatest spiritual growth. We don't grow when things are good, when things are happy. Not so much. We grow when we hurt. We grow when bad things have happened to good people. And in that void, in that wilderness is a creative time. When you go within and you meditate, that's where the creativity is. That's the organic, natural way for us to heal. In that time of silence, with just us and the God of our being connected one-on-one. That's the time that is pregnant with possibilities for imagining anything that you want to create in your life, for coming up with the right and perfect solution to bring you out of the void, out of the wilderness, into your higher good. That's where it is. And when we're waiting in God's time, if you think nothing's happening, sit down, go into the silence. I guarantee you, if you sit there for a little while, you'll come up with some kind of a solution that'll take you out of the wilderness very quickly. Because the way out of the wilderness is the way in, internally, connected to the God of our being. The way out is the way in. When we've experienced all of our emotions fully, when we've addressed them, when we've allowed ourselves to completely embrace the experience fully, then and only then will we be willing to let it go so we can move into something next. When we've learned the lesson fully, and I don't know about you, but sometimes I have to learn the lesson more than once. Yeah, don't like when that happens, but you know, sometimes I don't recognize it right away. You know, sometimes I think, oh, it's something else, and then I go, oh no, this is the same, it's different person, same words coming out of their mouth that the other person said, okay, that's not about them, that's about me, I get it. Because what we resist persists. Anything that you resist, any of your negative feelings you're resisting, you're going to keep having them. Make friends with them. Because when you're in the void, it's like that caterpillar crawling on the beautiful oriental rug. All you can see are little bits of color here and there. But when the caterpillar becomes the butterfly and can fly above the carpet and can see the whole beautiful design, when we've elevated our spiritual consciousness out of the problem into our higher good, then and only then can we see what we're supposed to learn, can we know what we're supposed to do next. When we rise above whatever the ending was, spiritually rise above the situation, when we stop doing what we've always done, thinking it's going to produce different results, that's the definition of insanity, right? And we do it over, and I do it over and over again. You may remember the story of a woman who was walking down the sidewalk, and there was a hole in the sidewalk, and on day one, she falls in the hole, and it takes her a really long time to get out. Day two, woman walks down the sidewalk, hole in the sidewalk, falls in the hole, doesn't take so long this time to get out. She recognizes it, okay? Day three, woman walks down the street, there's a hole in the sidewalk, she falls in the hole, she gets out right away, she knows exactly what to do. Day four, woman walks down the sidewalk, walks around the hole. Day five, woman takes another street.
Yes.
Sometimes it takes 5 days, my friends. But the important thing is that we are mindful enough to recognize that if we've fallen in the same hole 2 or 3 times, maybe we need to change what we're doing. Once we begin to do that deep inner work, once we've asked Spirit for guidance, once we've been grateful for that guidance and acted on it, then and only then can we move into our new beginnings. Because God wants us to succeed. God loves us more than we can imagine. God has our greater good waiting for us to step up and say yes. Are you willing? Are you willing to say yes to your greater good?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Valerie Burton, in her book, Where Will I Go From Here, gives us 5 commitments for finding a new beginning. The first one is, I will not feel sorry for myself. Sometimes I want to have a pity party. I'm sorry. My minister from Cincinnati many, many years ago, Jack Barker, said, if you want to have a pity party, fine. You've got 24 hours, then get over it. So I will not feel sorry for myself. I will not stare at a closed door. How many times has something ended and we stand there, let me in, I didn't mean it. Okay, none of that. No staring at a closed door. I will dig deep to unearth all the courage I need. You have more courage in you to face anything that you possibly have to face in this life. And if you don't, ask a friend to help you because they'll give you some of theirs. They'll pray with you. We have a number of the chaplains will pray with you. Anyone will help you get the courage you find to go, you need to go on. Number 4, I will direct my thoughts. My thoughts will not direct me. That one's pretty important.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in that pity party and you're thinking those negative thoughts. I will direct my thoughts. My thoughts will not direct me. And number 5, I will choose to believe that all things work together for good. I choose to believe that all things work together for good. No matter how it looks right now, because everything happens in God's time, and when you're practicing meditation and when you're connected with the God of your being, even if something negative happens, it will eventually turn out maybe to be the greatest thing that ever happened to you. Can't you look back on your life and see things that were really awful that turned out to be the greatest learning experience? When you're in the wilderness, when you're in the void, before the new beginning has happened, it's an opportunity for transitional, transformational spiritual growth. That's why we're here, is to grow spiritually. In transition, when you can move through the ending into the time of the wilderness, the time of growth, into the void, that's the fertile ground of being where we learn what we want to do next. We are here to grow. We are here to overcome. We are here to perfect our consciousness. We're here to experience life at its fullest, including the pain and including the joy. Because there's more joy really than there is pain. Transformation is a messy business. Just ask the caterpillar. It's a messy business. It takes strength. It takes endurance. It takes holding on. Remember the poster of the kitten hanging from the tree that said hang in there? Sometimes that's what it's like. None of us escapes this kind of transition without some scars. But the scars are the sign that the healing has occurred. It's about savoring the journey, even when you're in the wilderness. It's about seeing the sights. It's about being mindful that you can enjoy the view no matter where you are. It's being mindful of the presence of God. And that's why I say transition leads to transformation. Thank you.